The snowstorm howled through the night when Henry heard it, a faint scratching at his cabin door. At first, he thought it was the wind, until a weak whimper followed. When he opened the door, his heart nearly stopped. A skinny German shepherd stood shivering in the snow, her ribs showing, her eyes pleading for mercy. Beside her, a tiny puppy pressed against her legs, trembling. Without a second thought, Henry stepped aside. "Come in, sweetheart," he whispered. As the warmth of the fire touched their frozen bodies, Henry had no idea. Letting them in would change his life forever. The wind howled like a living thing, slamming against the wooden walls of Henry's cabin. At 73, Henry was used to the quiet, used to the loneliness that came after his wife passed away 5 winters ago. He sat by the crackling fire, his weathered hands wrapped around a steaming mug of tea, staring into the flames as the storm raged outside. Snow buried the trees, the path, even his truck. Tonight, the world felt frozen, until he heard it dot a faint scratching, then a low whimper. Henry froze, listening. Another sound, desperate, trembling. He set his mug down and opened the door. The wind burst in, biting and cold, carrying with it a heartbreaking sight. A thin German shepherd stood trembling on his porch, her ribs showing through her fur, her eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Behind her, 2 tiny puppies huddled close, shivering violently in the snow that Henry's heart clenched. "Oh, sweetheart," he whispered. He hesitated only a moment before kneeling down, holding out his hand. The mother dog didn't move, but her eyes said everything. She wasn't begging for herself. She was pleading for them. And that was all it took for Henry to open the door wide. The warmth of the cabin wrapped around them like a blanket as Henry closed the door behind the trembling trio. The German shepherd hesitated, her paws sinking into the rug, eyes darting between Henry and the flickering fireplace. Her fur was crusted with snow and mud, her ribs sharp beneath her skin. The 2 tiny puppies pressed against her legs, letting out weak whimpers. Henry moved slowly, careful not to startle them. "Easy now," he murmured, his voice soft as the falling snow. He grabbed an old towel, dried the mother dog gently, then placed an extra blanket near the fire. The pups crawled toward the warmth, curling together like little bundles of fur. Henry rummaged through his pantry, a can of stew, a bowl of water, and some leftover bread. He placed the food before her. The mother sniffed it, then looked up at him, hesitant, questioning, before finally eating. Henry smiled faintly. "You're safe now, girl," he whispered. "You'll never be cold again." Hours passed, the storm roaring outside. Yet something about the dog's behavior puzzled him. Even as she rested, her ears stayed alert, eyes flicking toward the door, like she was listening for something. Or someone still lost in the snow-by morning. The storm had eased, but the silence it left behind felt strange, heavy. Henry sat by the window, sipping his coffee as the sun rose weakly over the snow-covered trees. The mother dog, whom he'd named Luna, paced restlessly near the door. Every few minutes, she'd stop, stare outside, then let out a low whine that echoed through the cabin. Henry frowned. "What is it, girl?" he asked gently. Luna's tail was stiff, her gaze fixed on the distant forest. The puppies stirred, whimpering softly, sensing their mother's unease. Henry knelt beside her, rubbing her fur. "It's okay, you're safe now." But Luna didn't seem to hear him. Her ears perked, nose twitching, as if catching a scent carried by the cold morning air. Then it happened, a sudden bark, sharp and urgent. Before Henry could react, Luna lunged toward the door, scratching furiously at the wood. Startled, he hurried to open it. The moment the latch clicked, Luna bolted outside, disappearing into the blinding white. "Luna, wait!" Henry shouted, stumbling into the snow, his heart racing. The puppy's cries echoed behind him from inside the cabin. He grabbed his coat, his lantern, and followed the fading paw prints, unaware that what she was running toward would change everything. The cold bit into Henry's face as he pushed through the thick snow, his breath visible in the freezing air. "Luna!" he shouted, his voice swallowed by the wind. The forest loomed ahead, dark, silent, endless. His lantern cast a trembling circle of light on the ground, illuminating paw prints that wove between the trees. They led him deeper, to a place he hadn't walked in years. Then, he saw her. Luna stood still in a small clearing, her fur dusted with snow, her body tense. She turned her head toward Henry, then back to the ground, whining softly. He approached carefully, and his heart stopped when he saw what she had uncovered, a half-buried wooden box, its edges frozen solid. Henry knelt, brushing away the snow with trembling hands. The lid was cracked, and inside, wrapped in a tattered cloth, was something unexpected, a collection of old photos, military medals, and a faded letter with his name on it. He blinked, stunned. How did you find this?" he whispered. Luna barked once, then nudged the box gently, her eyes fixed on him with uncanny focus. Henry's hands shook as he opened the letter. It was his late brother's handwriting, words that would reveal a truth Henry had never imagined, and a message that Luna had somehow been sent to deliver. Henry's breath caught as his eyes scanned the letter, the words trembling under the flicker of his lantern light. "If you're reading this, brother, then somehow fate has done what I couldn't, brought you back here. I hid this box before I left for deployment. Inside are medals I never cared for, and something more important, my promise. I once rescued a German shepherd during service. Her bloodline carried a bravery I couldn't forget. If one of her kind ever finds you, trust her. She'll lead you to where you're meant to be." Henry stared at Luna, his throat tight. She stood proudly, tail wagging slowly, snow glinting in her fur. "You're one of hers," he whispered. "You came for me." Luna barked softly and pressed her nose to the letter, as if confirming it. The realization hit Henry like a wave. She hadn't come seeking shelter. She'd come to fulfill a purpose, one written long before she was born. Gently, he lifted the box and whispered, "Thank you, brother." He looked at Luna, her amber eyes glowing in the moonlight. "And thank you, girl." When they returned to the cabin, the fire still burned. The pups whimpered, tails wagging wildly as Luna curled beside them. Her mission complete, but destiny wasn't finished yet. The unbelievable was still to come. Weeks passed, and the story of the old man and the brave mother dog spread through the town like wildfire. Locals began visiting Henry's cabin, bringing food and blankets, curious to see the German shepherd who had led him to a hidden piece of his past. Reporters called it fate. Henry called it grace. Luna and her puppies had grown strong, their coats full and gleaming. Every morning, Luna would sit by Henry's side on the porch, watching the sunrise over the snow-covered hills. Henry often found himself speaking aloud, as if his brother could still hear him. "You kept your promise, Sam," he'd whisper, patting Luna's head. "You sent her right to me." One quiet evening, as the fire crackled and the pups played near the hearth, Luna walked to the wooden box by the fireplace. She rested her paw on it gently, then looked up at Henry. For a moment, he swore he saw something in her eyes. Recognition, peace. Henry smiled. "You found me when I needed it most," he said softly. "You saved more than a life, Luna. You gave me back my family." Outside, snow began to fall again, soft, endless, and calm. Inside the cabin, love and warmth burned brighter than ever. The unbelievable had happened, but only because one hungry soul had trusted enough to knock.